Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the Expressed and Orgasmic Living podcast, the show that teaches you how to go from feeling stifled and suffocated in your life to expressed and orgasmic. Here you will receive tips on how to honor yourself, fulfill your desires, and feel truly alive again. I'm your co-host, Renee Faith, Orgasmic Soul Freedom Coach.
And I'm your co-host, Cherie Linnell, Life Expression Coach. Welcome to this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome to this episode on Expressed and Orgasmic Living. I am your co-host, Cherie Linnell.
And I'm your co-host, Renee Faith.
And today we're talking about essential team members to carry you to orgasmic joy and expressed living.
Yes.
So let's get down to it.
So twice in my life, I saw a therapist. Once, the first time was after Christopher died. So for those of you who don't know, Christopher was a boyfriend that I had. He was a live-in boyfriend. And we were pretty serious. And after he came back home from, being deployed to Iraq for the war over there, he came back home. 6 months after he came home from Iraq, he died on a motorcycle accident. And it literally blew my energy out the water. So if you think of, I know your son plays football, some football games, they have that paper thing and the players run through the paper.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was like that kind of a big rip in my energy field when he died. And I did, within weeks of him passing, I did have suicidal thoughts. And I really got to see how thin that veil is from being sane and here in the world to having these suicidal thoughts. It's such a thin veil. And I saw myself kind of, because I attribute it to me meditating as a young child. So I had that kind of ability to observe myself. And I saw how thin that veil was. And I got myself, within 3 weeks of him passing, I got myself into therapy because I was about to have a mental breakdown. And I didn't have the right support from family. They didn't know how to help me grieve.
Right. Yeah.
And so that therapist for a little over a year, helped me by just listening.
Yeah.
Mostly listening because the grief was so new and fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just crying, and she just sitting taking notes. But it was helpful to have that anchor. Every Friday at X time, I'm going to go see her and I can share, right?
Yeah. And also the benefit of it too is that they help prepare you on how to talk to other people, because then you'll get an understanding of what you're going through, what's going on with you. And then you'll be able to talk with other people to help support you on what the therapist has outlined for you, So I would put the therapist on top, and then maybe one or two friends just to get started, because that's what I did. I had to start with just two people, one of them being my husband and another just being my friend. She lives in Vegas. Right. So that was the only two members of my support team that I had. And it was enough to carry me through to really the next phase. That would be talking to a coach, because coaches need coaches too. Mm-hmm. I've talked to you, I've talked to other coaches. And what they've done is put goals out there for me, something that you strive for, and then not have any pressure to get to a destination of it. It's really the journey. I think we spoke on that before. It's just a journey, and it's not really about the end part. It's just the journey. Yeah. So that's what the coach helped me do. The coach helped me take what the therapist told me and weave it out in an action plan that I can really do, and have the coach cheer me on. That's what they do. They cheer you on. They encourage you. I think they're an important part of that team.
Let's talk a little bit about coaches versus therapists, because you've had more experience with coaches and psychiatrists being on your team. Like I said, I had a therapist the year after Christopher died. I did have a therapist right after the separation. So I separated from my soon to be ex-husband in January 4th. And then a few weeks later, I got on the BetterHelp app.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a therapist for about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of said, I think I'm good. But I've worked more with coaches than therapists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you worked with more therapists than coaches? Tell me about coaches first.
Therapists and coaches. And the reason for that is because basically to go to a therapist is really to work out some sort of trauma, right? Where some coaches are not equipped to deal with trauma and other people, they're not trauma informed, whereas therapists are. That's their job, to be trauma informed. So with me, I dealt with all the problems I had with growing up and getting to a realization of, oh, so this is the why. And now what do we do about it? And the therapist, they'll give you well, my therapist gave me a plan that it was kind of working, but I did bring it to a coach. I did bring it to the coach and say, I need help figuring this out, because the therapist really isn't gonna, first of all, a therapist is like costly to keep going back and forth with them every other day, whereas a coach kind of builds that into their time. They expect you to come back to them often, whereas a therapist, they'll slot you in maybe once every 2 weeks and then a month. And
so the support level is different.
Yeah, the support level is different. It's more clinical. You know what I mean? It's more clinical in that the only difference really in my opinion, between a therapist and a psychiatrist is that the psychiatrist can write a prescription.
Right.
And, and I have a really good psychiatrist because she actually asks me questions and wants to know how my mind is. And that's really because she just wants to see how my medications are interacting with my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
So the therapist helps me sort out my thought process, and the coach will help me get through the end of that, the other side of it, if that makes any sense.
It does. So, and I'll just add that my experience with the therapist is, I think they're valuable, but for me, they're not as impactful. They weren't as impactful for me as coaches were in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the coaches helped me work through I felt like therapists were more of lending me their ear versus the coaches who really dove in energetically and looked at some root sources of the problem.
That is perfect. That is so correct. That's facts. That's a mic drop right there. Yeah. Therapists, like I said, it's more clinical. They have boxes they need to check off that they make sure they cover.
Yeah.
With you.
And so I believe in coaches so much, and because of the space that they hold energetically. So I would only go to intuitive coaches. I myself am an intuitive coach, and I would say Cherie is definitely also, because it's a holistic approach that we take. We believe that we have to look at your energy and we have to get back down to your inner child and the root cause of it. Because once you find the right root cause of whatever pattern or habit that you're trying to break in life today, once you get that root cause, it's like finding that right string to unravel, and everything just kind of comes undone really easily. And so coaches for me have been amazing support and have ushered me through some major milestones in my life. I.e. moving up here to the mountains. If it wasn't for my one coach, I wouldn't have been brave enough to step into with both feet what my soul was being called to do, to move to the mountains, to really break free from this immigrant mentality of I need to stay close to my family, because I'm the eldest child, or I'll be looked down upon. I'll be judged as a bad child because I'm moving away. To kind of work through that shame, those fears, the fear of judgment, to work through all that stuff, culturally, societal, the different pressures around you, so that I can say yes to my soul's guidance, say yes to my heart's desire and my dream. Without the coaches, I wouldn't be here today. I just wouldn't. They're everything, because it's the support that my immigrant parents couldn't give me.
Yep.
It's a certain level of deeper support that even close friends couldn't give me.
Right.
It's the space. Yeah, go ahead.
And the thing that's also a huge benefit of working with a coach is that coaches actually follow up with you.
Accountability, yeah.
Yeah, they follow up with you. They check in on you. Whereas a therapist doesn't do that. At least none of the ones I've ever seen. They've never sent me a text or just left me a message to say, oh, hey, I just want to make sure you're okay this week. You know, that doesn't happen with therapists, but it does happen with coaches. You know, coaches do that. We think of you, you know, holy, and we can, you know, we do feel your energy, and then we can always tell if we need to make that phone call or not, right? To see if you're okay and see where you need help with, where you're stuck, where you're feeling stifled. Because we talk about that a lot. So yeah, that's another key difference between a coach and a therapist.
And I love being that mirror, right? It's because you can't coach yourself through certain things.
Yeah,
you coaches need coaches, just like you said earlier, because we all have our blind spots. And so it's so crucial to have that coach, you know, throughout different transition periods in your life, so that you can really anchor yourself in that new energy. I'm trying to think of a blind spot that I didn't catch if it wasn't for my coach. Do you have a story?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do. My blind spot was that I was the issue, not my husband. I was blaming him for a lot of things, you know, the actions that he was doing that weren't healthy. I was blaming him for it, you know, but at the end of the day, it was his way of coping with my ways of being. And I needed to change that. You know, I needed to see it for what it is, that he is coping on dealing with me, not the other way around. If I got better, he got better. And that's exactly what the end result was. I didn't think of it in that way.
Yeah.
I just thought about it like, he needs to do this and he needs to stop doing that, and then I'll get better. But no, my problems stemmed way before our relationship was even an option. So that's what my coach did for me. And I went back and forth with an actual therapist, because they're just really things that with mental illnesses, especially if you're undiagnosed, that you need to get to that point with your therapist so that they can properly diagnose you. And then you go back to your coach, because now you know, hey, this is what I need. This is how you can support me. Yeah. And your coach will definitely support you in that way. And it's like I said, they follow up with you. They take an interest in you, your whole self, all your whole well-being.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about having a coach.
It's like a tag team for you.
Yes. Tag, you're it. You're it. And then eventually I don't need a therapist anymore. I just went straight to the psychiatry, because I know that my mental makeup needs her assistance, where she writes those prescriptions, you know, and then I'm able to have my relationship with my coach that will help me set some goals and see me through them. And if anything comes up, we talk about that and set another goal. You know, it's just all about the, you know, accountability and that support and that encouragement. You know, coaches, you know, life coaches are much like sports coaches, right? Like, their job is to keep you in the game, keep you on the court, keep you in the game, and keep you in the game as your authentic self.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, like the goals that you keep saying, you know, it's all to move you forward towards what? Express living, orgasmic living, you know, the thing that you say you want. Right? Yes. It's to keep that focus there. Let me just jump back real quick, because I did come up with a story where a coach revealed a humongous blind spot for me. So it was one of the more recent coaches I had hired after I got the soul guidance to work with Asian American women.
Mhm.
Do you remember this?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was really confronted. Like I didn't want to work with Asian American women. Majority of my clients were older white women. That's who was showing up for me for a number of years. And so when I had this nudge in that little voice that said, it's time to work with Asian American women, I just said, I can't. I had all these stories about, you know, maybe they can't pay head ticket. They're not spiritual like I am. They're either super Buddhist or super Christian or super religious. Like they're not going to get what I talk about. So I had all these stories and I just didn't want to. My energy was like, no, like a hard no. And I had this one coach who, after talking to me and like really knowing my story and my journey, she said to me, Renee, is it possible that deep down on some level, you think you're white?
Mm.
And I was speechless.
Right.
Now, mind you, I've been doing this healing work for 2 decades on myself as well as on other people, but I know I was just floored. I was floored. It felt like the rug was ripped out from underneath me because there was a part of me that recognized it as truth.
Right.
But it was so shocking to me, right? And this is internal racism put super plainly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It, like, Renee, is there a part of you that thinks you're white? And it's like, holy shit, like, I have to heal this internal racism. So for those of you that don't understand what internal racism is, right? It's basically you hating on your own race because you can't be with the fact that you're judged for who you are.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even make eye contact with, you know, some of the elder Asian women that would come up from the city to go apple picking in my town. I couldn't even make eye contact with them. I had the intention to as they would walk up, but it was uncomfortable. And so I started to notice all of this about myself and put the pieces together to be like, wow, this is internal racism. Because it's, you know, being judged for having an East Asian face. I couldn't be with other East Asian faces. You want to align with, you don't want to align with the thing that you're judged for, right?
Right.
I had no problem talking to like Filipinos and South Asians who have darker skin. There was no problem with me being with them fully present and one-on-one. There was no discomfort, no rub, no trigger, no friction. And that jump-started my healing of internal racism, which was, you know, timely because we started decolonizing the kids' education, and then other stuff came up with my daughter and racism. And so lots of conversations, healing conversations had. But the point is, the coach did that for me because she saw my life in this whole picture. Because as coaches, we're trained to do this. Like we've trained ourselves to really hold that larger picture.
Right.
And to look for the root causes, the patterns, the connections, because we're feeling it energetically.
Yep.
A friend couldn't have said that to me. A friend couldn't have pieced that together for me, right? So coaches are invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting that you said that, right? I'm wondering, did you get that externally too, that you think that you're white?
What do you mean externally? Did I get that externally?
Like, because when you said the coach was telling you that you think you're white.
Yeah.
The other people think that.
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, subconsciously they must have felt that I was aligning with whiteness.
Right.
So how that would have looked like was all the white clients that were coming to me, these older white women, felt more comfortable with me, right? Because they felt that I was aligning with whiteness. What, you know, I don't know how you want to put it, but
yeah,
I think it's an energy that's felt and not spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my clients are the same. Not any of them are persons of color, apart from when you were my client when I did VA work.
Yeah.
I think you were the only person of color I had. And I'm questioning that, like, why is that? Do I think that way? Do I, you know, I mean, but see, for me, it was externally told to me and I was fighting back against that. Like, no, I just like what I like.
Oh, so you were being told by other people around you that what was their language?
Oh, you think you're white. They will literally say, you think you're white.
Because you have white clients?
No,
Just in general.
this is
Okay,
just
okay.
in general. Like even from like my childhood and up and even to now,
Yeah.
who does that?
I wasn't getting that because I think now we're kind of going on a tangent, but I think, and this may be still such a broad brushstroke, but I think Asians, a lot of Asian Americans tend to assimilate with white society from the very get-go. Like a lot of immigrant Asian parents were like, we're not going to teach you Chinese because we need you to succeed in this country that we sacrificed, our lives to bring you here to. So you are going to succeed, get with the program, do what you have to do, assimilate, and reach the top, right? So it's a little different, I think, with Asian American society. It's crazy.
I totally get it. I totally get where you're coming from.
It was like volunteered assimilation versus forced assimilation with the indigenous people, right? Like it was all volunteered. Yeah. So it messes with your mind a bit,
Yeah, it does. So who do we have on our team list? The essentials so far. We've talked about therapists,
coaches for sure,
and then a couple of friends. Yep. And so who else should be on that list? Well, I mentioned before, if you do find that you are diagnosed with a mental health issue, mental illness, definitely have a psychiatrist on your team, because what they're going to do is they just want to make sure that what they're presenting you with in terms of medication is working for you. They'll ask you the questions, and your responses, they'll even still like kind of walk you through some type of therapy, but really it's like to help you understand what's going on with you with those medications if they prescribe them to you. So definitely have a psychiatrist on your team if you have that type of thing. And I know it can be very, 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 very hard on the pockets. But like Renee went to BetterHelp for therapy. And from what I hear, it's an affordable service. Okay. Whereas if, in case you don't have insurance or things like that,
There's another one that does take insurance. I forget the name of it, but there's another one that's comparable to BetterHelp.
Yeah. I think that's what we're talking about. Well, we'll look it up and put those links in the description, right?
But I really want to highlight that coaches were everything for me. Like they could, I've had therapists and I've had coaches, and I think both, depending on the situation, both are so important, right? Mm-hmm. These blind spots and some of these stories that we're sharing, you may think like, well, what does, I didn't have anybody die on me. I didn't have suicidal thoughts. I don't have internal racism. You may feel like, well, these stories don't really, pertain to me. Mm-hmm. We're sharing them because it's all a part of, it's this journey that you're on. So wherever you are in your life, you want to get to this point of fulfillment, peace, joy, happiness, what we're calling fully expressed and orgasmic living. You want to get to this point, whatever your dreams, desires are. So to go from here to here, it's a journey.
Yes.
And there's sometimes depending on what kind of life you've led, there's no like point A to point B and it's a straight and narrow shot. It's not. So all of these stories we're sharing, it was just healing the layers.
Yeah.
The necessary layers that are at the core.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the core of who we are, dictating how we're running our lives. So
yeah. We all have our stories, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to know how many stories we really have. If we sit down and work with our inner child up until this point, we have a bunch of stories about all the situations and circumstances we've been through. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if you gave a title to each of those stories, how big your book would be? Right? That's how many stories we have. Like we have a story right now developing.
Well, the human mind and the ego is constantly making stuff up, right?
Yeah. So our stories, they could be resonating with you or not, but throughout this episode, throughout this podcast series, I mean, we're going to share some stories, lots and lots of stories. And I'm sure a story will hit the nail on the head for you, right?
Yeah. And I like to look at it like an onion, like
yeah, peeling off the layers. Yep,
peeling off
that's
the
good.
layers to get to like the center, which is the real you in full expression, without without layers to hide you behind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we're sharing all these layers that we've peeled in our lives because we've done so much work. There's so many layers to share, so many healing stories to share. And just know that it's a process. Yeah. And a lot of times you'll go to a coach or a healer and you'll be like, oh, healer, can we add that to the list? Yes. Energy healer.
Energy healer.
So you'll go to a coach or a healer, and a lot of times they'll point out to you that blind spot, and you weren't expecting it at all. But it's that, it's that aha, once you have that awareness, that can shift you so deeply, more than you thought. So invest in coaches, therapists, energy healers, get a good mentor, find the friends, make those heart connections so you can keep your friends in your life. So I was one of those people, by the way, that would just cut people out of my life, cut friends out of my life. And that comes from my old story with my sister's death. My sister, who was a year older than me, and she was my best friend, obviously. At the age of 3 and 4, she passed away. And so my whole story was she left me.
Right.
So I have these issues with friends where I leave them before they can leave me, and I cut them out. So you want, if that's you, and Cherie raised her hand earlier, if that's you, you want to make sure you start to build those heart connections, because friends and connection is so key.
Yeah.
Not just for support, but in general healing as well.
Yeah. And throw out I like to say, the stinking thinking that you're a burden when you have, when you need the support. You're never a burden. That's for sure. No matter what you think, you're not a burden, even to those close to you. Like, and you know what I mean? The ones that are close to you, those who are uplifting you and are cheering for you and want you to win. You're never going to be a burden to them. I mean, that's why you have to think, because those type of people want what's best for you. And you'll have to like think about letting go of that idea that you don't need the help from them, or you can't ask for help. That's it. You have to let go of the idea that you can't ask for help, because you're not a burden. This is why you have a team, right? So don't feel like that. When you build the right team, and you'll be comfortable with asking for help, and that'll extend outside of your team too. I ask for help all the time, and that's outside of my team. I ask for help if I see something that I want to do something and I can't do it. I don't try to do it myself anymore. I'll ask for help. And before, that wasn't an issue. I mean, that was an issue for me. I couldn't ask for help. It was just too much of a burden.
So I would invite our viewers to take on this affirmation of I deserve support.
Yes, I deserve support.
I deserve love. I deserve support. I deserve a team.
Yes.
To support me.
Yeah.
So that's your essential team that will carry you to express living in orgasmic freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don't forget, we have groups too to support you.
Yeah, join our Facebook group. Cherie has her Alive and Unbothered Facebook group. I have my Orgasmic Soul Freedom Facebook group. Mm-hmm. And I want to just invite you guys also to get on the phone with us. Like, book a free call. We offer free complimentary consultation calls to see what's possible. And because I think your dreams and your desires, it's all possible now. You don't have to wait till the kids are out of the house. You don't have to wait till, your parents are fully taken care of and that job of taking care of elderly is complete. You don't have to wait for that. Like, you deserve goodness, joy, happiness, freedom now. So hop on a call. You can go to reneefaith.com/coaching and click on that book a complimentary call button and get on my calendar. And Cherie, how can they get on a call with you?
CherieLanell.com/application. Or there's a button right on my homepage too. There's a button right at the top, in the middle, and at the bottom. So
lots of chances to talk to Cherie.
Yes, a lot of chances. Like you want to go on there immediately, you go boom, there's a button. Just push that button and then answer a few questions and set up an appointment, and we will have a chit chat.
Yeah. And so again, these are free calls where you can tell us where you are and where you want to go with your life and what your dreams are. And we can share with you, what we can offer to help you bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. Don't wait. I think in a lot of episodes in the past, Cherie has pointed out, it's a lot of years wasted.
Yeah.
Don't choose to honor yourself.
Yep. Don't waste another moment.
So is there anything else you want to share, Cherie, before we close up this episode?
No, it's just a little funny thing. When we're talking about peeling off layers, I just thought how my son, every time we say goodbye to each other, he calls me an onion and I call him a chicken wing. So I'm in my mind thinking of him every time I'm like approached with an onion
metaphor.
And he calls me an onion. I'm like, why do you call me an onion? I'm gonna have to ask him that, because I'm just rolling with it. Like onion, I go chicken wing. That's our thing. Yeah. So he calls me an onion at least 3 times a day.
So you got to be like, yeah, I'm healing out my layers.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm going. That's my comeback. Thank you. Yep. But he'll always be my chicken wing.
Super sweet.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we think you're super sweet for joining us every week. Leave a note in the comments below. Tell us what insights you've gained. We just, the feedback helps us. Not just makes us feel good, but it really helps us to see what it is, what kind of support you need. Drop us notes on what you'd love to hear from us in future episodes. Like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode in the future. Thank you so much for being with us again.
Yes, thank you so much. And you will see us next week.
One day we'll get that one right.
Yes, one day.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a like and subscribe. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments. And visit us on our websites, reneefaith.com and CherieLanell.com, to learn more about how we can serve you on your journey. All links below in the description. See you next week's episode. Bye now.